Hello, and welcome to day 5 of our Merry Minds in May PBL. Today we are going to read a story about a little girl and her resourceful grandmother and a big bad wolf. And being resourceful means that you are able to rely on yourself and your knowledge and the resources around you to be able to solve your problems. And we're going to learn how Little Red Riding Hood had some help solving her problems. Once upon a time, there was a young girl who lived in a village near the woods with her mother and father. Every so often, they would travel to visit her grandmother on the other side of the woods. The young girl's grandmother always doted on her and gave her presents when she visited. The best present her grandmother gave her was a little red riding cape with a little red hood. She wore it everywhere she went, and soon enough, everyone was calling her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother called to her and said, "Your grandmother is not feeling well. Why don't you go for a visit and take her some treats to brighten her day?" "I would love to," replied Little Red Riding Hood. So Little Red Riding Hood set out on the path to her grandmother's house. So the first conflict or problem in the story is that the grandmother is sick. And so the grandmother's daughter and granddaughter, Little Red Riding Hood and her mother, came up with a plan to help solve that by bringing her treats and to brighten her day. As Little Red Riding Hood entered the woods, a wolf approached her. Since she did not know that he really would like to eat her up, she was not afraid of him, so they started to talk. "Hello there, little girl," said the wolf. "Hello," said Little Red Riding Hood. "And where are you going all by yourself?" asked the wolf. "Oh, I am headed to my grandmother's house. I am going to take her some treats." "That is so very kind of you," said the wolf. "Pray, tell me, where does your grandmother live?" "She lives in the first cottage along the path, just beyond the river," Little Red Riding Hood told the wolf. Oh no. Little Red Riding Hood has a new problem. Do you know what it is? You know what your grandmother would love, the wolf asked as he was concocting a plan. "You should pick her some wildflowers to make a bouquet." "That is a splendid idea," replied Little Red Riding Hood. And so she began wandering through the woods looking for the prettiest flowers she could find. That was exactly what the wolf wanted. Now he could get a head start and arrive at the grandmother's house first. So if you thought that Red Riding Hood's new plan or new problem was going to be that the wolf was going to trick her and try to get to grandma's house first, you were right. You might be familiar with this story too. When the wolf arrived at grandmother's house, he knocked on the door. "Who is there?" grandmother asked. "It's your granddaughter," the wolf replied in a high-pitched voice, trying to sound like Little Red Riding Hood. "I have some treats for you." "Oh, how nice," said grandmother. "Pull the latch, my dear, and come in." Stop and think. What is going to happen next? The wolf burst into the room and tried to grab grandmother, but she was surprisingly quick on her feet and managed to get away. She immediately ran off to get help. "Oh well," thought the wolf, "I can still wait for the little girl." He looked around for one of grandmother's nightgowns and he concocted another plan. A short while later, Little Red Riding Hood came to the door. So I think the wolf has come upon a problem now as the grandmother has gotten away, but he decided to look on the bright side and know that Red Riding Hood was coming soon and he could wait for her. When he heard the knock, the wolf once again disguised his voice, this time to sound like the grandmother. "Who is it?" "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," she replied. "Pull the latch and come in, dear child," the wolf said. Little Red Riding Hood noticed that it did not sound like her grandmother, but she thought perhaps her cold had changed her voice. So she went inside. She approached her grandmother's bed and noticed she did not look like herself either. "Grandmother, what big arms you have! All the better to hug you with," the wolf replied. "Grandmother, big ears you have! All the better to hear you with." "Grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with." "Grandmother, what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you up with." And with that, the wolf jumped out of bed and chased after Little Red Riding Hood. Fortunately, just then, Grandmother returned with some help from a woodcutter who was working nearby in the forest. The three of them chased the wolf out of the house, into the woods, and all the way to the river. Oh, wow. It's a good thing that Grandmother went and got help, because that certainly saved Little Red Riding Hood from her problem. Whoops. The wolf was running so fast that he fell right into the river, and the water carried him far, far away, and they never saw him again. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother thanked the woodcutter and offered to share their treats, and they ate a cake to celebrate. Little Red Riding Hood promised that she would never talk to a wolf again. And there they are celebrating because they were all able to help each other. So even though Little Red Riding Hood made a mistake, she had her grandmother, and the grandmother had the woodcutter to help. That was the last page. The end. All right. And if you like fairy tales or stories, this series is called 5-Minute Storytime, and there are many other books, some that they will read to you even. It looks like there's quite a few that they will read to you. And then there's even more books that are like fairy tales that you can read. And these are all on Epic. So please take your time and get a chance to do some reading today. I hope you enjoyed the story.